expressed in this podcast are solely those of the participants. The hosts make no claim to be literary experts, and their opinions are exactly that, opinions. All creative works discussed or reviewed are the intellectual property of their creators. This podcast contains adult language and discusses adult themes and topics, including sex, violence, magic, adventure, banging, and politics. This content is not appropriate for children, and listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Of Swords and Soulmates, a podcast where we read, watch, and discuss romantasy stories. I'm one of your hosts, Mari, and with me I have Kelly.
Hey everyone, it's Kelly. We also have Ashley.
Hi guys, it's Ashley. We also have Jonathan.
What's good, everybody? It's JP. So excited.
So much energy. Today we're going to be discussing Radiance by Grace Draven, but first some news. And at first I was like, I don't know that I have a lot of news. And then apparently I do have a lot of news. So the first thing was that Southern Charm Book 1 got a book reveal. The sequel, the series sequel to the Stay a Spell series that Juliet Cross did.
Juliet, we love you.
Yeah, it's like the kids from that. So it's the Southern Charm Book 1 got a cover reveal. The book is coming out in February 2025. The cover reveal looks interesting. It looks similar to the Stay a Spell. Like it looks like it's of the same series. You know what I mean? It's cute. So I'm excited about that series. I think it's going to be fun. The other thing I had is I kept seeing Snag Tights Company, and they sell like tights, pantyhose, that kind of thing. They have ACoTAR tights now. So they like they're dark, and then on the knees they've got the mountains with the little stars up top. So it's like the Mountains of Valaris tights.
What?
Yeah.
Bro, these are sexy.
Yeah, I like tights too. Yeah.
I look at this and all I can hear is from Spaceballs Yogurt saying, "We put the picture's name on everything." Merchandising. That's where the real money is made.
Spaceballs, the flamethrower.
I feel like we're going to have ACoTAR the tights. We already have ACoTAR the coffee tumbler that I've seen advertised.
Yes. The candles, the stickers, the bookmarks. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, how do you translate it into tights? Do we have a picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can click on the link. Just go to Snag Tights. So Snag Tights is actually a pretty good company. I don't have these tights, but I have bought tights from them before. They're regular tights. They're not like anything different from any other tights you're going to buy anywhere else, but their sizing is very good.
Inclusive.
Yeah, most of the times you have like, they'll be bigger or smaller, but they don't take into account the length. So if you are heavy like me, you get these tights that are for someone who's very, very tall. But I am 5'3". So when I get like the big tights, they're way too long on me. But Snag, it has like big tights, and then they have big short tights.
Kelly, for women, I'm just looking at these sizes. It's A/B, followed by C, D, E, then short F, then F, then G. This is a piano. It's the piano of size charts.
It's a symphony.
Women. Are there even pockets?
No pockets. They're tights.
No pockets?
No pockets. They're tights. They're like pantyhose.
They're not leggings?
No, they're not leggings.
Different.
They're like tights.
I didn't realize there was a difference between...
Like pantyhose. There's like, the knee-high stockings that we shove the ice in for your last bicycle race.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Same.
But print.
How much are they?
$20.
There's a significant cost difference. I'll stick to
these are prettier.
Okay.
Welcome to the patriarchy, where everyone has to pay to look decent, and you're lucky if you figure out your size.
Yeah, because as confused as you are by this sizing, Jonathan, you go to another tight company or pantyhose company, and it's completely different.
It's entirely different.
Yep.
Oh, there's no standardization, huh?
Nope.
No. Have you looked at the size guide, Mari? Curvilicious.
I love it.
Prominent bum and or tum. There's also athletic, small or flat bum and or tum.
Yeah, I love their sizing. I love their advertising. They include people of all sizes. They include people.
I was going to say, it's made by a woman.
Right. They include people of all abilities. Like they'll have people in using chairs or using walking assistance devices or whatever. Like they do. They include everybody in their advertisement. So I knew about the company, but then I saw like, wait, ACoTAR tights? I think they're cute. I may end up getting them. We'll see.
They are quite adorable.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I saw is that, okay, so you guys know that Wicked the movie is coming out in November. And the trailer and stuff has started to come out. So Universal in Orlando is doing a Wicked experience. So basically in the Orlando park, where what used to be the Hello Kitty store is going to be a Wicked experience. So it's like retail, food, and a like walkthrough experience. It sounds almost like a tribute store, which if you guys, I know all of us have gone, but for listeners, if you haven't gone to Universal, they do like tribute stores for different holidays, like Christmas one, Halloween, Mardi Gras, and also to celebrate like their older movies like E.T. or Ghostbusters or whatever. So it's like a store that's all themed out. So they're going to have a store that's going to be themed out to Wicked. It opens in late October. They didn't have an exact date, but it's going to have Shiz University merchandise, which is the university that they go to in the story. It's going to have stuff designed by Mina Lima. It's going to have Legos, Wicked Legos, lounge fly bags, and then prop replicas from the Noble Collection, which does like the really good movie accurate, really pretty props. Gregory Maguire wrote Wicked, which is a prequel to The Wizard of Oz, and it's also been a musical. Like the book was first and then the musical, which Kelly and I have seen a few times, which is very good if you ever get the chance to see it. So I'm excited about the movie. Have you guys seen the musical or read the book or anything?
I remember reading the book some years ago and really struggling to get through it. I would have been pretty young though, like early 20s, and it was not my favorite book, but I've heard phenomenal things about the actual production.
I've avoided everything that has to do with The Wizard of Oz successfully. The Wizard of Oz is like, that's my podium of fears.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Me either.
15 years together, I did not know that The Wizard of Oz was a fear of his.
Yeah. Huge. Ever since I was a kid.
Is it the monkeys?
It's just a scary. When you're a child and you look at that film, it's a scary ass movie. Have you ever
like Gremlins?
I dare you to put it on for Savannah.
Savannah's odd. She would not like it.
Yeah.
Terrifying movie for children because it's well known that the actress who played the Wicked Witch of the West, she hated how children feared her after that portrayal. So it was definitely terrifying for children at the time and for years afterwards.
Well, I was going to say maybe we could read Wicked sometime for the podcast, but I will not put you through that. So we don't have to do that.
I think I've seen, who's the one with the Spider-Man villain guy in it? Isn't there a newer one where they give like the backstory of how she was scorned?
Sir, you got to give me
prequel.
more. You got to give me more.
Is a prequel.
That does not narrow it down.
I mean, this is...
And it was a split blade of villain and Spider-Man, maybe?
I got nothing.
I got nothing, too.
Which Spider-Man?
Spider-Man number 1.
With Tobey Maguire?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the original Green Goblin?
Okay, so there was a Wizard of Oz movie that had the guy who played the son of the Green Goblin in the original Spider-Man.
Oh.
I validated. Thank you.
Still have no idea what either of you were talking about.
So it was a movie called Oz the Great and Powerful.
I do remember that. It wasn't very good.
It had James Franco, Mila Kunis,
yep.
Rachel Weisz. But yeah,
it wasn't great.
The big problem with Wicked the book versus Wicked the musical and now the movie is the stories are different. If you read the book, it's not going to be the same story. It's not like, a very 100% faithful adaptation. They made some significant changes from the book into the musical.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, to me, the book is a little bit more of a story of like a coming of age and a little bit of a love story. The musical was a coming of age and a found family, like friendship type story. So I'm interested to see which way they're going to go with the movie. Probably more like the musical because I think that's mainly what they're basing it on.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the next thing I had was that the Bookish Box Company is going to be doing a special edition of some of Carissa Broadbent's works. So they're going to be releasing a signed set of Ashes and the Star-Cursed King and The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. So those are Crowns of Nyaxia books. So books set in that Six Scorched Roses series that we read. It's in that world. So there's no details yet. I don't know when these are going to be released, but they're going to be signed books by her. So I would expect that these would probably go fast.
Yeah.
So, but Bookish Box does some really pretty books normally. So they're probably going to be really pretty.
I'm going to need a part-time job.
This is my job to afford my books.
Right.
Speaking of, Callie Hart, who wrote Quicksilver, which I know you've read, Ash, right? You read Quicksilver. I'm like still part of the way through it. I put a pause on it to try and finish Crescent City. But there currently is a signed special edition hardcover version of this book available at like the regular price on Waterstones.
Freaking Waterstones.
Yeah, so when I say regular price, it's £20, which is the regular price for a hardcover, but then it's £13 for shipping to the US.
Goodness.
Yeah.
That's rough. Don't quote me because I didn't write it down. However, I did hear, I thought I read recently that Callie Hart was picked up by like traditional publishing, which is great for her. Super excited. However, the fallout from that is that book 2 is now not releasing for another year. Allegedly.
I think that's what I heard. Yes, I agree. That's what I heard.
So very sad for us. Yay, Callie Hart. I'm so happy for you, but dang girl, 12 months is rough. I don't know the exact story. I don't know if she was just indie publishing or self-publishing, but it is a very popular social media book right now. Like it blew, like again, like Fourth Wing almost. It was wildfire. It was all across my For You pages. Yeah. And I got conned. I read the book. It was a little slow for me at first, and maybe that's why you took a break. But I was sold. At the end, I was sold. So
I mean, I like it. Yeah, if I wasn't trying to finish Crescent City, I'm sure I would have finished Quicksilver by now. I had this weird idea that I was going to finish Crescent City on like the trip to Vegas or something, or the trip back, or the plane. I did nothing. I made zero progress on anything.
That's fair.
It did not happen.
Fair. No. And she's a thick book. The Callie Hart book is a thick book too. I think several nights I was up at an unforgiving hour trying to cram it all in. So I feel you.
Yeah. So far I'm liking it. I know that I was reading something, I think it was on Reddit, where people were trying to guess what the Romantasy Goodreads books were going to be, what the 2024 Romantasy Goodreads books were going to be, and Quicksilver was a name that was thrown around a lot, like Quicksilver, When the Moon Hatched, the new Crowns of Nyaxia book, and probably Crescent City.
I also heard too that she was instrumental in designing the cover of Quicksilver.
Ooh, that's what you get when you do indie. You get to have some say.
When you do your own stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
No, because like I was, for the book that we're reading today for Radiance, I was trying to find out who did the cover, and I couldn't find it, but I did find a statement from the author, from Grace Draven, basically saying that, when you're work with a publisher, with a, traditional publisher, you don't get any say in anything about the cover. She's like, I'll have a discussion with you on any of my indie books that I published because I picked the covers for those, but the rest I had no input on.
Interesting.
So, yeah, which is kind of a version of things I've heard from reading a lot of different authors. I think the traditional publishing model, authors don't tend to have a lot of input unless maybe if they're really big names. Like I'm sure, Rebecca Yarros probably has some say on her covers.
Sure. No, that makes sense when you say it out loud.
I think the majority of them don't. So speaking of When the Moon Hatched, Sarah A. Parker, who wrote When the Moon Hatched, is doing a U.S. signing tour because she lives in New Zealand. But she's going to be touring the U.S. from Saturday, September 28th through October the 5th. I know that the weekend that we are going to be at the Fabled Fantasy Romantasy event, that October, whatever it is, 3rd, 4th weekend, she's going to be in Decatur, Georgia. But the weekend before that, she's going to be in Florida. So I know I'm going to be at that book signing that she's doing in Bradenton, Florida. There's a few others, but if you're interested, go to her website and check out if any of them are closer to you, or close to you. I'm trying to remember my memory. I don't think any are West Coast. I think they're all East Coast, but I think it goes up to like New York. So she has a few, but it's just, I believe it's all East Coast.
Good for her making the rounds.
I know. That's a good one. I don't know if we'll ever read it for this because it is so long, but that's a good story. I would definitely recommend that series to anyone who's interested in it. All right. So the last thing I had for news was Sebastian Nothwell, which we interviewed on here before. He wrote O King, Holly King. is now available as an audiobook. So you can get it from Audible or wherever you get your audiobooks. That book is now available as an audiobook. The narrator is Gary Furlong. So I have not listened to it yet, but I know it's available.
And shout out to Sebastian for letting us know that it was available. Mm-hmm. He certainly did not have to follow up with us. It has been months.
I know.
We've chatted with Sebastian. So thanks so
Absolutely.
much. It was on Jonathan's TBR for that. He was really sad not to listen to it in traditional audiobook version because he, I think he did a script to listen kind of thing, and that was rough, and he got through it. So I know he's super stoked to hear this one because we love Sebastian.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the audiobook's going to sound, so I'm sure I'll play it while I do stuff, put up Halloween decorations or something. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody else have any other new stuff they want to bring up?
There's a TikToker by the name of Jasmine Moss.
Okay.
She wrote Blood of Hercules. She was picked up in a 3-book preempt by Harper Voyager and set to publish in the UK and North America in November. So
I've heard of
Hercules. This. Yeah, this is it's a really interesting backstory to me because it's this twist. I guess the catchphrase here is we're putting the her in Hercules. It's this Greek gods inspired novel that follows Alexis Hurt as she attends this war academy and then tries to graduate while the heirs to the underworld haunt her steps and her thoughts. So it's supposed to have this dark humor, this romantic-y, slow burn to it, and I'm interested. I do enjoy those Greek god stories. So having this twist.
This is a good bit, sir. I'm very proud of you right now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's a 3-book preempt, so I'm hoping that it becomes a series.
So it looks like book 1 of 2. So 2 are currently available. Forgive me, I'm Googling as I look at this. So it's also Kindle Unlimited, guys.
Nice. If I'm remembering right, I believe, and it may be available elsewhere, but I believe I saw that on the Waterstones website, a signed version of that book is available right now too.
They're very pretty covers.
They are pretty. And it's an interesting concept. It's a female Hercules. That's kind of a cool
spin.
Yeah. Let me add one more.
Another
bit while we're talking Greek retellings. Abigail Owen, who we've read her books before, she just released a book called The Games Gods Play.
I bought it.
Have you read it yet?
I bought it. I didn't. No, I haven't. But I didn't even read the summary. I didn't have to, Mari. It was so pretty. I pre-ordered it. Is that it? That's not it.
I'm thinking about doing that. I'm thinking about getting it while the really pretty one is available.
I don't know where it is. I'll send you a picture. But as soon as I saw the cover, I was like, I said, it's for me. She's talking to me, I said, and I bought it. I pre-ordered it. I was sad. It was delayed by a week. Thank you, Amazon.
Is that the one with the edge painting?
Yes.
Yeah.
The teal blue one.
That one.
I think it's a Hades and Persephone retelling, I believe. At least I know Hades.
I know it's Hades. Yeah.
So I assume that the female main character is Persephone or a Persephone type character. But yeah, it's definitely Hades in it.
It's definitely a book trophy because it's stunning.
It's really pretty. Yeah. That was on the list. I think I'll be reading that one soon. It's interesting. I feel like Greek retellings have kind of come back as a phase, but I don't know if they have. I think they've just kind of always been around and I just haven't been as aware of them,
What a news thread we had today, you guys.
So much. I know. All right, are we done with news? Anything else?
I'm good to go.
So we are going to be reading Radiance. We're going to be talking about Radiance by Grace Draven. This will be the last podcast that goes out before we attend the Fabled Fantasy Romantasy BookCon event in Orlando, and Grace Draven will be an author there. This book was published January 11th of 2015, so it's not a new one. It's been around for a minute. Let me read the synopsis, and then we can get into a little bit. The Prince of No Value, Brishan Kashkem, Prince of the Kai, has lived content as the non-essential spare heir to a throne secured many times over. A trade and political alliance between the human kingdom of Gwar and the Kai kingdom of Bast Haradis requires that he marry a Gwari woman to seal the treaty. Always a dutiful son, Brishan agrees to the marriage and discovers his bride is as ugly as he expected and more beautiful than he could have imagined. The noblewoman of no importance. Idiko, niece of the Gwari king, has always known her only worth to the royal family lay in her strategic marriage. Resigned to her fate, she is horrified to learn that her intended groom isn't just a foreign aristocrat, but the younger prince of a people neither familiar nor human. Bound to her new husband, Idiko will leave behind all that she's known to embrace a man shrouded in darkness but with a soul forged by light. Two people brought together by the trappings of duty and politics will discover they are destined for each other even as the powers of a hostile kingdom scheme to tear them apart. What do we think?
Who wants to go first?
I don't mind going first. Yeah, I'll go first. This was a reread for me. I read it earlier this year. It had been on my TBR since last year. I first heard about this book on YouTuber I follow that I've mentioned before, A Frolic Through Fiction. She talked about this book, and a few others I'm sure I followed also talked about it. But that's, I think, the first place that I remember hearing it. So it's a reread for me. I enjoy it because I feel like it's a true enemies to lovers in that there is no instant love. There is no love at first sight. There is no anything. There's active disgust, and then they've got to build on everything from there. I like this storyline a lot. I would say on the reread, I'm going to give it the same thing I read it the first time, which was 4 stars. There are things that I thought were incomplete about this. I think would have made it a better story, but I really like the way the relationship was made. Yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it at for now.
So I'll go second because I want to touch on some of your points. I struggled to read this book only because I think this was such a busy time frame for us. Individually, we all had things going on the last couple of weeks. But I actually really liked this book. I thought it was an easy read. It wasn't too heavy. There didn't need to be a ton of world building, but it, enough existed that I got the picture. I knew nothing about this book going in. And I didn't get enemies to lovers. I got friends to lovers. And that process, that growth was just so sweet to me. And I genuinely can't remember the last time there was a friends to lovers that wasn't a contemporary romance read for me. And it was so sweet how they were just blatantly honest with each other from the beginning. It led to this friendship that was based on honesty, which grew into a relationship faceted by love. And I liked this a lot. This was a 3.5 for me, only because I didn't have that, I wasn't staying up until 4 a.m. reading it. But I liked it a lot and I would like to continue. I think the only down for me was where it ended. I thought they could have given a little bit more to maybe wrap things up or explain something else before they wrapped up the way they did. It left me a little bit disappointed at the end. But it was a clean ending. And so for that, I'm grateful. I really liked this book. This was a solid read for me. Boys. Guys.
I DNF. I tried desperately hard to get into this book and I just couldn't.
How deep did you get?
I probably got a good 40-50% into the book.
Oh, so you, what was the last thing you remember?
Last thing I remember, I can't. Yeah.
Okay.
We're
no
not
spoilers.
We're not at that part yet. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I can actually, I'll mute myself and I'll go look at what percentage I got through.
Well, you got to give a rating.
A rating?
I don't know. Do you give a rating if you DNF?
Yeah, I would say if you DNF, you don't give a rating. It's fine.
I'm still going to give a rating.
I mean, if you want to, but I don't know.
Can't stop, won't stop. It wasn't a good book for me. I'm still going to rate it.
Okay.
Well, what's your rating?
I'm going to give it 3 stars. That's halfway through.
I feel like those are pity stars.
They are.
I know.
We're sorry. We're sorry,
every book
Grace.
is not made for everyone.
This is true. I mean, that's a fair statement.
What do you think, Kelly?
I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I enjoyed some of the world building, having the 2 different races. And I agree with Ashley. This definitely felt more like a friends to lover because they had bonding over the fact that they were both sort of the outcast royalty. of their respective families. So they had a lot to bond over. They had a lot of trauma bonding right from the get-go over that. So that was definitely made it feel more like friends to lovers than anything else. When did this book get published?
2015.
Yeah. So it felt very much like it was influenced by like Avatar or something, the way things were described, the way that people were described being kind of cat-like, which is how I always thought that the Avatar blue people was they kind of were a little bit cat-like. So I just wonder if it was, influenced by Avatar. This book would have come out 5 years after Avatar. So
maybe
I guess not entirely out of the possibility.
Yeah.
But I also agree with Ashley. The ending was very short. Seemed like it
just wrapped up really quick.
Yeah, it was like blah blah blah, and here we are. This is the end.
Yeah, I agree. The pacing and some of the plot stuff is why I didn't give it 5. Yeah, same reasons. So, all right. Anything else before we go into actual spoiler part where we can talk more details? All right, Kelly.
All right, dear listener, from this point forward, we will be discussing spoilers. So if you have not read the book or you don't want the spoilers, then feel free to come back to this episode at a later date or skip to the end. But if you don't mind the spoilers, then continue on.
All right. Yeah, I've actually read the sequel as well, and in my brain I conflated the two as to where the story ends. But both books, in my opinion, have the same problem with pacing and where the plot happens. I think she's really good at writing the relationship between them and the build-up and the interpersonal stuff and how they come together. But I think some of the world stuff around it is just fast forward, pause, and then it just ends kind of thing. So, yeah. I think it's probably some of the same thing you guys were saying.
I feel like it would make a semi-decent TV series.
Possibly.
There were commercials.
Yeah, I mean,
between some of these chapters, I felt like.
I agree with you. Actually, it definitely felt like the plot moved in bursts rather than a smooth, continuous movement of the plot.
Mm-hmm. And I don't mean it in a bad way. I wasn't unhappy with the book. We've read far more challenging books, I feel like. I was a big fan, of I didn't mind the pacing. I didn't mind the language. I think when I was talking with Jonathan about it, some of the language stuff was maybe not a hurdle, but maybe a thumbs down for him. I think he's starting to notice that he likes more modern tones and language. So this one was a little bit more old-timey-ish, a little bit more formal. But I liked the banter.
Yeah.
I thought the banter and the friendship was probably the best part for me. I
agree. I think we've talked about this before where some authors either describe themselves as a pantser or as a plotter. The plotters they plan out the whole world and the whole plot before they get going, and then the pantsers are the ones who are just kind of make it up as they go along. And she describes herself as a pantser. And I think some of that probably comes into play with the flow of the plot, where it does kind of jump around a little bit. Yeah. So as far as the fantasy, I guess I think I started before, so I'll start with my rating on fantasy. I gave it a 3 for fantasy just because of that. I felt like some things of the world were well developed and some things were just kind of hand wavy, and I wanted to know more. I wanted to know a little bit more of why things were the way they were. So it was a 3 for me.
Yeah, that's a solid response. I would probably also say a 3. I thought there were some interesting things before Kelly mentioned Avatar. I didn't make that connection, but I thought it was interesting, and I think the title of the book mentions wraith, right? And I don't think we actually ever read that anywhere else in the book. So I thought, when we're talking about I guess a different species, right? They're not fully human in the way that Go is. And I just said that name wrong. I know I did. But I thought it was just interesting how they were just, duty bound to bridge the gap, and how they just mutually decided very early, to friends and to open up with each other. And that meant him talking about his past and their magic and their traditions. And she was so willing, right? We're not even talking about a damsel in distress situation here. She wasn't grossed out. She was committed. And there were new aspects, right? So like, could you imagine marrying someone that doesn't have pupils? That's wild to me. That's a soul to keep.
Yes.
Kind of vibes for me. Freaking orbs of light instead of eyeballs. What do you got? You're staring at me over there.
Because like to me, it's like marrying your dinner.
Dinner.
Because they used to, like, in the past, they used to like eat them.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about from his perspective.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he doesn't remember that past.
I'm not marrying a cheesesteak anytime soon.
No, but he like attributes her to a horse, and I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. But how many like vampire love stories are there? Twilight? Dracula?
All of them, right?
All of them.
Many.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was a whole new perspective. And so I thought the wraith/vampire vibes were super interesting. I thought their history, right, was super interesting. And I think that's probably what kept me going. So yeah, I would agree on a 3. Jonathan.
I like the world building. Is that where we're at, right?
The fantasy.
Yeah. I like the fantasy. That gave me good vibes, right? So if it's just the tone that it was written in. It felt a little too cold.
Serious.
Yeah. But like the idea that you have 2 kingdoms that are like, you have the 2 spares essentially, right?
Yeah.
And they're kind of being brought together as this handshake between these 2 entities. And the kingdom that she's marrying into is strong and feels dominant. I mean, they were attacked, right? And initially, and they fended it off. And that's where like I kind of dig the cat people vibe when they were like, hey, absorb my memories. And then I also like the idea that there was almost this drugged sensation where you don't just take these memories in, like absorbing them.
You're experiencing them yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. He was calling out for his mother and gave his true thoughts and true feelings towards, what's her name? Ildiko? Illy and Bree. What, I don't know. I was calling them for a while, but like they were like, hey, he looked at her and he was like, yeah, you're ugly, kind of thing. And from the perspective of the person who had fallen, right? But she knew enough to know that, hey, okay, that's not him. I need to be with him and support him in this space, and I did enjoy also their brutal honesty, but I didn't view it as brutal honesty. I think sometimes when people are brutally honest, it's just an excuse, a scapegoat to hurt someone. But I didn't pick up on that. I think they were just like, we don't know sarcasm, but it almost sarcastic at the same time. Like, hey, yeah, you're hideous.
And it definitely like converted into that. They joke about it later on.
Yeah, it's like their pet names later on.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely did enjoy that world building element. It felt like I was right in that mix. So I'm going to give that a 4 in my non-votable vote.
Kelly?
I think the world building was decent. I gave it a 3. I just felt like the world was heavily influenced maybe by Avatar, but I also think that the way they portrayed his race was very similar to classic mythology about fantasy elves. Oh, we're a dying race, and we're losing our power, and our days are numbered, but we still fight to hold on to our influence and power, that kind of thing. That's like the stereotypical fantasy elf trope. And I think that was definitely used on that race to a pretty significant degree.
Anything else about fantasy before we move on to romance? Romance, for me, that was like the high point of this book was the romance. So for me, romance, I gave it a 5. I thought the romance was well written. I thought the romance part of it was well paced. I thought how they were honest with each other and, became kind of like allies, we're on the same side, and then friends, and then it developed from there. I thought the pet names they had for each other, I thought it was just a very, very well written, well constructed relationship. So to me, it was the romance, and this was a 5.
Yeah, I have to say it's a solid 4 me, and I don't even know what would make it better. I just think it hasn't grown enough, right? So I'm sure book 2 would very likely hit that 5 point for me unless something goes dramatically sideways. The the friendship to lovers genre is not something that I've dived too much into. And so it was very refreshing. The honesty was refreshing. The banter was refreshing. When she asked that really deep question, like, how did you evolve into this decent creature, right?
Yeah.
And not the product of the personality of your parents. And he barely hesitated to jump up and not even like, he could have just told the story about his sister, right? He didn't.
Yeah.
He showed her. And when he busted out that light of that 4-year-old dead baby sister, I teared up.
Yeah.
Being an older sister myself, I teared up. So yeah, the romance was very much the high point of this book and will be a very strong reason if I get to book 2, because of our schedules. But
I know.
I enjoyed the romance in this so much. It was just so refreshing. It wasn't forced. We didn't even get into some steamy stuff until like 55% in. So I thought it was very well paced. I thought it was very well explained, very well detailed. I was not unhappy. I have no notes for it. It was a 4 for me.
I didn't make it to romance.
You didn't make it to romance.
I'm not going to rank it. I will say this, though. I got good vibes out of it.
Good vibes.
When she met his parents and kind of clapped back a little bit.
She did.
And he was pretty like supportive of whatever was happening there. Like, I feel like maybe that was lending itself toward foundational elements of it.
Kelly?
I did enjoy the romance. I thought it was one of the better romances we've read, just because they had such a strong connection and the way they worked together. It was more of a partnership and that kind of thing rather than just blazing lust to start with. So I've always enjoyed more of the relationships that start as friends or start as, equals. And I did like the way they sort of were flirting with each other throughout the book once they got more comfortable with each other. That was nice to see that kind of romantic flirtation going on. Overall, I think it was a 4 on the romance. Definitely the strongest point of the book.
Okay, so moving on to spice. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of spice because it was a bit of a slow build, but I think that when the spice happened, I thought it was very good quality spice. Like, I think it flowed well. It didn't feel intrusive. Like, I think it worked with the story, that it was well done. For me, the spice was a 4. I think that they went about it with their eyes wide open. It took them a while to get there, and then once they got there, they were all about it. And they were able to find that comfort in each other as things got really, difficult in their lives and in the plot. So I thought it kind of highlighted the whole them coming to like trust and depend on each other. So to me, it was a 4 for spice.
I really enjoyed, again, how there was nearly 0 physical attraction to begin with, right? And you're talking basically about 2 different species. You're not talking about different ethnicities or religions or races even. Like, you're talking about things that are not supposed to procreate together, basically.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was so well developed, that spice, right? Because looks are not everything. And there is something to be said about a friendship blossoming into a romantic relationship where your perception then changes of the other person, and that person becomes the most beautiful thing, right? It is about personality. It is about strength. It is about character. And those things far surpass looks. And in this instance, I think it aided in the looks department. Yes, this creature is 1,000% different than what I am and what I grew up with. They are the most precious and beautiful thing to me. The spice explanation part was lacking a little bit, I think, but I thought it was very politely described and told. Their passion for each other, you saw that build up. It was obvious. And I just thought it was very nicely done. So I think it was a 3.5 for me.
Was there a bangening?
There was, you just didn't get to it. I think the bangening happened at like 70% of the book.
Deep in there.
Like, did she get good powers out of it? What happened?
No, I don't. It wasn't really a banging. Like was it a
banging?
There was a banging. There was lots of banging. But I don't know that special powers came out of it.
So there was an abundance of banging.
Like when you hit like 65% in.
You hit 65%. That's when the sheets.
Like once they started, they kept going. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like newlyweds.
Yes.
Interesting.
Or like first dating.
You got to know what you like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. I was just
and
checking.
It was really interesting too how he was so cautious of like his teeth.
And
but
claws.
She still took the efforts to kiss him in the way that humans do so that it was enjoyable for both. I thought that was really, really nicely done. It was very polite.
Like
very demure.
Very demure.
I will say, to me, this is like I would label this as a monster romance. And that is something you see often in monster romance, where you have like a human character with a non-human character, and then you have ways to make kisses work.
Accommodation.
Despite fangs or whatever other things that the monster character may have that may not work with kissing. You have different ways of doing kissing. Yeah, I thought this was well done in that. Kelly?
I think that the spice was a 3, and that's kind of what I felt like. It was the kind of average, better than average, slightly better than average. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Ashley. The whole part of them being careful, and then once they finally got going, they were like newlyweds. That was definitely a little bit different than what we've normally seen in the books we've read. Overall, it was good. It
was a good journey. It was a good journey from like we've said, from active disgust of each other to, a full-on relationship.
Right. I mean, that's the whole thing about romance. When you love someone, you definitely see them as being, more attractive than someone else may see them.
What did we think about the cover? I guess I've been going first, so I'll keep going first. I like the cover. I think it's this, I don't know if it's a trend or a thing that I see often in like monster romances, where you have very traditional like Harlequin type poses on the front, but instead of it being like a Fabio and model kind of character, you have, a grotesque or monster kind of character. So yeah, it's a very like, you could see a Fabio pose happening with that cover. So to me, it's that kind of a pose. It would have gotten my attention. So I gave it a 4.
I agree. I think I was less focused on the posing as much as I was focused on like how distinctly different they were. And I think I went back and referenced it a couple of times in their descriptions of each other. It's easy to picture a human. I think it's more challenging to picture a quote unquote monster, right? And so you want to go back and like, man, I wish they would have shown his teeth. I want to see it. What were we accommodating? But that aside, I was it's almost like a gargoyle vibe, even from the cover. I liked the cover a lot. I don't know if it would have stopped me and made me buy it, but I definitely appreciated it as a reader who did read the book. It was a 4 for me. I liked the cover a lot. I thought it was very like specific to the story, right? We're not just looking at random clip art covers, mashed together to try to make sense like some of the others we see. It was relevant. It was it was them very specifically. So I think it's a 4.
I thought the cover was basic.
Basic?
I didn't get monster vibes from it. I got like gray skinned vibes, but
like a gargoyle.
Yeah, but also like I was, as a child watching the gargoyle cartoons.
Me too, sir.
I was like, those are pretty rad things. I was like, I probably would not have purchased this particular book based solely on the cover.
Kelly?
So I gave this cover 3. I feel like, it wasn't the usual clip art fest that we've sometimes seen on some covers. Just the 2 of them on the cover. Yeah, it definitely felt like a Fabio cover, and I guess that kind of just turned me off some, because you don't even get like a really good look at his face.
Right.
He's got
his
like
eyes are covered.
Thing. Right.
All right, so do we think it's a kissing book? I think so. I think so because I think that if they hadn't built their alliance into a friendship and into a romance, I don't think they would have lasted. I think it would have fallen apart either when the mom tried to kill her.
Or the initial raid, just as they're leaving the wedding. Like,
yeah, the initial raid.
He just immediately fell into that protector. It wasn't even duty. It was solely because it was her.
Yeah. Or like when she had to go and rescue him. Like there's so many points where I think it could have easily fallen apart if they didn't have that strong bond between them. So I'm going to say yes.
I agree. It's a yes. Mr. DNF?
I don't know. I can't. There's
no opinion?
There's no possible way for me to drop this through the calculator in order to come up with the determination. So I'll abstain here.
Yeah. Did you trademark calculator yet, Jonathan? Because you probably want to trademark that. So
Very cutesy.
You can prevent anyone else from using that name.
Yeah, I think you do.
It's a programming code.
The romantic calculator.
We should just make a separate web page on our website where we have the calculator and people can just drop in.
Yeah. What if the people want to rate their own things using the calculator?
Yeah.
I'm trying to shake out more questions for it. What questions am I missing in the overall algorithm for the calculation? And
Sorry.
So I got to figure. It needs growth. So if you're out there listening and you want to add questions to the calculation or to the algorithm.
So in the end, I said I agree with you at romantasy for sure, because as you've already pointed out, if they hadn't developed the friendship, then the romance, then it would have all fallen apart. He wouldn't have been so inclined to defend her at all costs. The mom would have killed her, etc.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else we want to say about the book?
I'm curious to see where it leads to, right? Because this seemed very surface level drama, if that makes sense.
For sure.
Like we're looking at the wrong villain, almost kind of thing. The epilogue was a little interesting. I'm curious to see where book 2 leads. I do have a theory. I mentioned this earlier, and I'm wondering. I don't do this. I don't like to wonder. I just like to enjoy. However, I wondered if the supposed loss of magic, the generations, like literally from, one generation to the next, is because of almost like interbreeding, right? So is it because the Kai are only mating with Kai? And I wonder if a human, procreation is necessary to increase the magic. It seems interesting to me that it's so well established that kids won't be a product of a Kai and human marriage or a Kai and human mating. And I wonder if it's bullshit, like straight up bullshit.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I'm fully expecting a baby, a little pretty mixed baby race, Kai and human. And I think that thing's going to be powerful and magical as fuck. That's my theory.
One of the interesting things about this book is how you can correlate the disgust the different groups of people had, like how the humans had for the Kai and vice versa, and the marriage between the two and how they all seem to talk about it like how terrible it was going to be. You could substitute African American for Kai, and it would be the exact same disgust, etc. when you look back into the 1920s to the 1950s.
Yeah. A commentary on interracial marriage.
Right. So it's very, and then going and looking at it like that, it does give you a different perspective of the book, because, you may think, oh, humans would never really be like that to a different race, but we've done it to ourselves. So
we still do it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of...
We still do, absolutely.
Yeah, so it just felt so unnaturally taboo. I'm curious to see the next step in that relationship and the surprise unfold, right? Oh my God, we were told this wasn't going to happen. And it's because someone was stifling the magic. So for all you know, husband, a banganing is coming. You don't know.
I think it's also a commentary on women not being able to choose, historically, arranged marriages where women were just commodities, were just things.
Well, she says as much, right? That was her only worth,
Yeah, that she may have married someone who everyone thought was a monster, but like he really wasn't. Like there's a part I highlighted, this Ideko's viewpoint, said she had proclaimed his appearance ghastly and his honesty handsome. Ideko still stood by both opinions. She could have done infinitely worse. More than a few Gauri women had the misfortune to marry human men with handsome faces and ghastly souls.
No one wants a ghastly soul.
No, not at all. All right, rapid fire?
Rapid fire.
So in lieu of rapid fire, like instead of having a movie or whatever, I came across this image, and I don't know who originally did the picture. It was posted on Instagram by librarians.co, and it's just this pile of books, and it says, "It literally stresses me out how many good books are out there that I still haven't read." So my question to you guys is, how do you feel about a ginormous TBR? Does it stress you out? Are you excited? Is it a challenge? What do you think?
I would say that arguably, for as much as I've read throughout my whole life, I have not been fantastic at tracking it. I will honestly just buy a book. I will buy a book and it will sit on my shelf, and there is no plan to read it. And I don't know how many times this has occurred. So reading this quote stresses me out because I know I haven't been tracking in a way that a lot of readers do. And I've done it. I've bought the sticky notes. I've bought the reading journals. I've joined Goodreads. I have another app whose name I'm forgetting in the moment. And I'm just not being very good about it. So I think my ignorance is bliss. And it would very much stress me out if I tracked it in the way that even you, Maury, do, because I think you do a really good job of tracking things. So my counter answer is that ignorance is bliss, guys. Don't track your stuff. Read it when you want to. Buy the books. YOLO.
I would say make your TBRs as long as you want them to be. Endless, infinite. Nothing wrong with having too much to do.
I feel like the answer for him is that it does not stress him out.
Not at
How
all.
many good books are out there?
Sounds like it excites you.
I don't know if it excites me.
Would you say it excites you?
My plate's always full with different crafts, and I need to find time to squeeze in.
Like the dishes?
Ooh.
Maybe.
Kelly, what do you think?
A want to read list is not stressful unless you make it stressful. You know, if you're putting expectations that you're going to finish your entire TBR, then, you know, what's the point of it? The whole point is finding the books that you want to read and looking at that list when you need an idea for the next book you want to buy or read. So if it stresses you out because, oh, I need to read this book, and you add it to your TBR, then, you know, you'll either read it or you won't. I don't get stressed out about my want to read.
For me, I get excited about the TBR. So I'm not great. Like I'm pretty good at tracking what I have read on apps like Goodreads, and I like Fables is the other one I like. Fables and Goodreads. I'm good at tracking what I have read because I think it's interesting to see certain trends. Like I just finished rereading Howl's Moving Castle for the third time, and I've read it almost around my birthday every year for the past 3 years, and I hadn't realized that. It wasn't like I made a concerted effort like this is what I'm going to read on my birthday, but you know, tracking it, I'm like, oh, I always read it in September. So things like that I think are interesting, but for the actual TBR, I'm not great at tracking my TBR on the apps. I have a embarrassing list of notes on my notes app that just scrolls forever, scrolls for days of things. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. I'll add that to my ongoing TBR, and then I'll pull like books from the TBR, and then I'll make a separate monthly TBR. Like, oh, this sounds like a September read. I want to read this in September or whatever. But overall, I don't think I feel stressed out by it. I feel excited by it. I feel excited by the idea that like there are books that I've read in the past few years that have been amazing stories, amazing worlds. And there's more out there like that I don't know about yet, you know, that are already written that I don't know about, let alone the ones that haven't been written yet. It makes me feel excited to be able to have access to those.
I think it would stress out my bank account if like the TBR had dollars.
Kindle Unlimited is the best. Ooh, if there was a book category on my bank account, it would be scary. I don't want to know. That part, yes, ignorance is bliss. I don't want to keep it in the fun spending.
Yeah, Wells Fargo, please don't do it.
Don't do it.
I don't want to know.
Don't hurt us like that.
Don't do it.
All right. Anything else anybody wants to say before we wrap it up?
And don't forget, we'll be at the Romantasy Book Con.
Yes.
Because I believe this is the last episode before the con actually takes place.
It is.
So we'll be there.
Oh, yeah.
Come and say hi. We'll find you. Thanks for listening to Of Swords and Soulmates. Before we go, make sure to check the show notes, rate and review, and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice. It helps others to find us. Follow us on Instagram at Of Swords and Soulmates, or join us on Facebook, our Facebook page at Of Swords and Soulmates, or check out our website, ofswordsandsoulmates.com. And now we're also available on YouTube and TikTok, same username. If you'd like to offer a suggestion for a future rapid-fire question, reach out to us. Give us your opinion, if you agree with us, if you disagree, etc. Please do so. If you'd like to read along with us as we prep for a new episode, follow us on Goodreads or Instagram or any of these other methods that I've said at Of Swords and Soulmates. We hope you'll join us in 2 weeks for our next episode when we finally read and review ACoTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Yay! Bye!
Bye.
Bye.